Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Apologies and leaves of absence. We have an apology from Director Ian Ellett, the Director of Infrastructure Services. Acting in his place tonight is Nathan Mullane. Item 4, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Councillor Gold? You'll just need your microphone on, Councillor Gold.
I have a general conflict of interest in relationship to the sustainability grant, in that I'm a member of Totally Renewable Beechworth.
So at item 13.1, we'll restate that and ask you to leave the room at that point. Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I have a general conflict of interest with item 12.3 as I'm affiliated one of the recipients of the grants. So I request that I leave the room.
And similarly, Councillor Tysell will re-explain that at that stage and get you to leave the room. Any other conflicts of interest, councillors? Are there any questions for open forum?
Nil, Madam Mayor.
We'll now go to community and council achievements. And can I just say, Iris and Anne, if you want to come and sit front and centre while we come and talk about you for a start. Councillor Gaffney, you'd like to introduce this community and council achievement?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Beechworth has been crowned Victoria's Tidy Towns winner in Keep Australia Beautiful Victoria's annual 41st Tidy Towns and Cities Sustainability Awards this week. Keep Australia Beautiful Awards focus on creating a more sustainable, resilient and beautiful Victoria. I'd like to welcome Iris Manick and Anne Wilson, who have been the driving force for many, many years. Beechworth has been named Victoria Tidy Town of the Year in 2009, 2014, 2017 and 2019, while the town won the national awards in 2010 and 2020, a remarkable achievement led by these two citizens of Beechworth.
So we'll invite you up if you'd like to tell us a bit about it. If you'd like to speak at the lectern, and just press the button to turn it on.
I had a 3-day conference on the weekend, then down to Melbourne, and that's all I've done is talk. So I've got a bit of a hoarse voice, as you can hear. We're really over the moon with this. I generally get a feeling that, hey, if we haven't won, we're going to go close. But I wasn't so sure this time, mainly because they combined it with city, and we weren't sure how it was going to go, but it went very well. They clearly defined country and city, which is really fantastic. And we took the drag out crew with us, and they were the dinner entertainment. Well, it was chaos. We just wasn't sure how they would be accepted, because people, we know, not everyone is generous about our particularly drag queens, but the crowd just loved them, and it was really, and they really got into the mix, so they were really good. And of course, they were one of our finalists and one of our winners, the Bird Museum being the other one. And it was lovely that, oh God, I'm sorry, I'm not sure of his surname, but Matthew from Total Renewable Yakandanda, they were up against Total Renewable Beechworth, and they won. But he was very generous. He said, come and stand with me, Putney, along with Peter Antwins. So we took a photo of the three of us. So, but it was a really, really good night, full on, but really good. And now we've got to aim for the big one now. But to do it, we've got to get to Gascoyne Junction in Western Australia. That's where it's going to be held. Population of 69 people, and they're going to set up a tent town. So we're going to go. So that's what we aim to. That's in May next year, but between now and then, it'll be judging again. Most of our projects, though National has a couple of different ones. So I think I've got it down that I only need to chase one category, which is our young legends, which I usually have someone into young legends, and we didn't this year. So I've got a couple of leads now, so we'll pretty well be covered, and National too. It'll be judged by Zoom, as they're doing nowadays, but the awards will happen in Western Australia. So that should be interesting. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
I'll present it to the mail, I would imagine.
Yeah, we'll absolutely be proud to take that off your hands. And I suppose we just wanted to say to you as well, we really appreciate that you do this for our towns, for our communities, in identifying these projects and taking them to these awards. It's no surprise when we hear that you win, because I think that you've got it down to a really fine art, and it's really fantastic to have people in the community who are constantly on the lookout for different projects that meet the criteria and can be recognised at these different levels. I just wonder if any other councillor might like to make a comment. Sue, Councillor Gold?
I would like to just acknowledge how extraordinary these two women are, and particularly Iris, in the persistence in chasing community groups to actually get the information that she requires for the submissions. And having been on the receiving end for many years, it's...
You know, I've chased you.
I know the persistence and the determination, but also how great it feels as a community group to be recognised and even shortlisted. And we would never achieve that without these two women putting in the hours and hours and hours of the identifying groups, pulling the applications together, rallying us all to provide the photos, the information that's required. So my heartfelt thanks to both of you. I think you do an extraordinary work, and I would hope you do enjoy a tent in Western Australia.
I think we've got it down to a fine art now, and people are starting to realise the benefit of it, and sometimes a bit late, but at least they are letting us know, do you know about this one? Do you know about that one? But it's taken,
It's also the community, the whole community, they are doing such fantastic things out there, and without them doing those things, we couldn't put them in this award and we couldn't win it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we get to welcome you back next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. But in the short term, we really wish you all the best of luck at Gascoyne Junction in Western Australia. And thank you for, as I say, recognising our towns and taking them to those awards. We'd love to get a photo with you as we hand that over. And councillors, I'll invite you as well if you'd like to jump in a photo as we receive this on behalf of Anne Wilson and Iris.
Just mention this. That's recycled plastic, and all the colours of the plastic, and I believe there's tops, isn't it? I think that someone said. I'm not sure, but I think someone said there were tops. Bottle tops. Bottle tops. And just, I mean, it's just amazing. There, you know, that's what it's all about.
Which one's that one?
That's the trophy.
That's the trophy.
This is the certificate, and this is the trophy.
Great.
And if you compare it to what's out in the foyer, how they've come such a long way that they're making trophies out of recycled plastic.
All right, let's get a photo with the councillors and Anne and Iris.
I do. I've been there.
Okay, we'll keep moving. We feel it's really important to welcome people along to be recognised in such a way. And Councillor Croucher, you wanted to also record a community and council achievement.
Yes, I'd just like to mention the District V6 Lions Convention held in Beechworth recently. I had the honour of welcoming the participating Lions on the Friday evening to not only Beechworth, but also the Indigo Shire. I attended part of the convention as a member of Lions and was pleased to say that the 120 plus visitors enjoyed the Indigo hospitality and the convention was a resounding success.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Very good. Item 7 is condolences. Do we have any condolences? Item 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following meetings minutes be confirmed. 1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of September 2023 as published on council's website, and 2, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on 26th September 2023 as published to councillors under separate cover. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Horn. Nothing to say, Councillor Gaffney. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arriving from previous minutes. There is nil reports. Item 10 is petitions, also nil reports. Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is December 2023 quarter 1 finance report. The recommendation is that council accepts quarter 1 year to date September 2023 finance report. Do I have somebody who would like to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When you first look at this, it doesn't look too good. And on page 10, it says that Indigo, the proposed budget, took a hit of $635,000 as an unfavourable variance in regard to Buller Gas. This was due to a very poor snow season, which is recorded as the worst snow cover in 45 years. If you then go to page 11, it also talks about a $617,000 favourable variance, which is caused because less gas was purchased. During COVID, when Buller Gas was using very low supplies of gas, the budget took a hit of several $100,000. Not saying that this is going to happen on this occasion. because of the much less gas purchased. We won't know the exact result for probably a couple of months. Would that be right, Director?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, yes, it'll take a while for the purchases and the sales to even out. Depends on when we get the truck of gas delivered.
Thank you. Apart from that, Indigo Shire is in a very sound financial state. Cash in the bank is $5.02 million and term deposits of 6.5 million, which is a total of 11.524 million at hand.
Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'll just speak in as a summary to what Councillor Gaffney said. Despite that financial year showing an unfavourable result, once carried forward projects from 2023 have been accounted for, the final result will be able to record all Q1 updates in October and bring both income and expenditure into alignment.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up?
No, thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is planning permit application PP 230105 for 4603 Murray Valley Highway, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council issue a notice of decision for planning permit application PP 230105 to grant a planning permit for the development of a frost fan at 4603 Murray Valley Highway, Rutherglen, subject to the conditions included within attachment 3. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is just another piece of farming equipment which is required within our valuable wine industry to preserve their ongoing harvest as we meet environmental concerns and changes. We're having much more colder mornings, and this will operate predominantly on those frosty mornings and help preserve our harvest. Thank you.
Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I, again, am very pleased to see a business, and particularly an agricultural business, which is so important to our sector, in a sense, staying ahead of the game and looking at technology that supports them to be efficient and adapting new technology or the newest models of technology that is effective for the work that they need to do. And in the scheme of things, has minimal negative impacts. And I was very pleased to see that that had been investigated quite thoroughly so that we were prepared with a very thorough report around what the fans might mean for that business and their neighbours.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
I think it's important to note that the fan only operates when triggered by frost, and it's a frost fan in the farming zone, which coincides with the right to farm in the farming zone.
Would any other councillor Croucher?
It was really great to go down and have a look at the area too. That sort of helped me a lot with this particular one. And I just noted down 2 or 3 points. The frost fan is designed to be used only when frost is beginning. So it may not be all of the year. It would be just only part of the year. And the noise was not really a concern. I think they put it towards something like a household refrigerator. And this sort of thing assists agriculture in a farming zone, which is very, very important for us.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to note that councillors did ask particular questions about to do with amenities such as the noise level and the setback from surrounding properties, and we're really satisfied at that site visit that it wasn't even just the minimum standard that had sort of been met, that it was actually quite a good setback from neighbouring properties and quite a low level of noise. If any other councillor would like to speak, otherwise I'll return to the mover. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. It'd be great to see this installed before our next winter, and hopefully the equipment installed has the outcome that they desire. Thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3 is planning permit application PP 200100 Myrtleford Stanley Road, Stanley. CEO, I understand that we'll ask for an update from Greg Pinkerton, the Director of Planning and Corporate Services.
Yeah, thank you. I was advised late today that this particular planning permit has been withdrawn from by the applicant. So therefore, there's no decision that council needs to consider tonight.
Thank you, Director. We'll move to item 11.4, which is domestic cat controls. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 makes an order under Section 25 of the Domestic Animals Act 1994 to introduce a 24/7 cat curfew to property boundary effective 6 months from the adoption of this recommendation. And 2 makes an order under Section 10A of the Domestic Animals Act 1994 to introduce mandatory desexing of cats as a condition for new registrations. And 3 includes in the order under Section 10A of the Domestic Animals Act 1994 an exemption to mandatory desexing of cats for 3.1 cats owned by a registered breeder for the purpose of breeding, and 3.2 cats deemed by a vet to be unsuitable for desexing due to a medical reason. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold.
Thank you very much. I am very conscious of the number of pets, domestic animals, in particular cats, that are euthanised, not only in our shire, but across the country, and it goes into the thousands per week. I think it's an extraordinary a slight on our approach to domestic care, and I'm very pleased that we're quite contemporary in our consideration of the welfare, both of domestic animals and in this instance in cats, but also in protecting our amenity, our environment, and the broader consequences of cats that do roam and do multiply in unfavourable conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, I think this is interesting in that it's really come from the community, this cat curfew, because in 2020, was it? 2021, when we did the Domestic Animal Management Plan, the DAMP plan, out of that came a lot of feedback from the community around cats being a problem. And I remember we discussed, well, that's an issue that we probably need to look into more. And 904, 904 responses later from the community, we got the message that this is a big issue that we need to do something about. So I just really like to say congratulations to the community for really, coming forward and giving us their feedback on this and telling us what they expect to happen. And I think this is a good outcome. I think it'll be probably, it'll take a little while, and I see we've got we're giving advice, we're giving feedback on how to assist with, how we're going to assist. That I think there's also discussion around how we can include our local land care groups in giving some feedback, and our local vets. And there's a 6-month lead in so that people can get their head around this. So I think this is going to be a great result for the community and for the cats and for our wildlife.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney.
Council had a great deal of community consultation, and finishing up with 904 submissions is just astounding, and I believe it would be a record number for Indigo Shire Council. This recommendation provides council with the opportunity to improve protection for wildlife, promote cat wellbeing, and highlight the importance of responsible pet ownership. The main reason given for supporting cat confinement was to protect local wildlife, as I just said, and the overwhelming percentage were for this motion.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
This move brings us into line with responsible keeping of dogs. So I think it's a very good move. I think it may be a bit of a concern for some people about how they house their cats so that they don't get out. And I had a look on the internet, and there's lots of information on building little patios. I thought that's a rather cute way of describing their little houses. And they can be constructed quite simply and quite inexpensively. And I think there are a lot of people that would be able to assist people who perhaps don't have those skills to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? I'll go back to you, Councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up?
Thank you. I think the key points have been raised, and again, very pleased to see a response come to council that reflects the community sentiment at this time. And as I think as Councillor Horn has mentioned, there's a lot of local resources and information to support cat owners to implement these changes over a 6-month period, which I think is an excellent outcome for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development. Item 12.1 is Closed Circuit Television CCTV Indigo Shire. The item is for decision. Councillor Gaffney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that this item be deferred until the November council meeting under section 65G2 of the governance rules. The reason is to allow councillors to attend a meeting with police on the 8th of November.
Councillors, for a deferral motion, there's no further debate. We'll put it to the vote that this item be deferred. Oh, sorry, it needs a seconder. Councillor Tyson. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. As I said, no further debate on this item as it's a deferral motion. So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the Event Grants Program 2023-2024. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 distributes $60,000 in the 2023-24 Indigo Shire Events Grants Program as follows. There are a total of 21 applicants and events with various amounts recommended. I won't read all of those. And number 2 is to thank the Event Grants Assessment Panel. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, as the non-voting chairman of this assessment panel, I would like to endorse the process of consideration for each submission based on the criteria for the distribution of these funds. It was really pleasing to see a cross-section of events over a wide section of the Shire who received fundings.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. It's great to see the variety of events that have been offered. I know, having been on some of the selection criteria, often some of them are quite similar. These are quite diverse, and as Councillor Croucher said, they're diverse across our communities as well. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Just some questions for the mover. What people were on this event grants program committee?
Well, I think.
Or where are they from?
Could I ask the Director of Community, could you actually tell us where they were from? There was Murray Arts, I know there was one of them, and I'm putting you on the spot.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. The committee comprises of, and I haven't brought my glasses, but representatives of Murray Arts, the Beechworth Health Service, Indigo North Health, Yakandanda Health, and councillors and Sports Northeast, as well as representatives from Tourism Northeast and the councillor chair. So I can't speak to who was present at those meetings because I wasn't in attendance myself, but they're the panel that assess the applications.
Thanks for that. I'd just also like to ask the chair, with these event grants, is it normal that private companies be funded to run events possibly for profit?
Well, I was the chair. I just followed the process and the criteria that was there. So again, I might ask the director, will you be able to help us out with that one? And I'll switch it.
Certainly, in the guidelines that define what is eligible and how grants will be assessed, private companies and commercial businesses can put in applications for events. This is to reflect the fact that council's keen to partner with the community on hosting events that generate economic and social benefits for the community. So the fact that they're commercial entities isn't a reason, according to current guidelines, to deem them ineligible.
Just another question. So is there a weighting that private companies need to handle when community groups are denied access to these funds to run events?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand that question.
Is there a weighting process score that private companies as compared to community activity run by the community? So is there extra weight for communities over private enterprise?
Not to my understanding, and there's 3 criteria that are used to evaluate the grants, and each grant or application is then assessed against those criteria on its merit.
Anything further, Councillor Gaffney? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I am a huge fan of public-private partnerships, and this is a very small example, I think, of where council can leverage the expertise in our community, be it our for-profit, for-purpose or not-for-profit organisations, to deliver value to the community, and in this instance through events which we know vitalise our towns and our region. I think it's really important that we find different ways to leverage partnerships so that the council can contribute in a small way to a much bigger outcome for the community. And I think it's also behoven on us to ensure that we are having in place contemporary criteria and assessment criteria as we go forward. But I, for one, am very happy that we are able to find really strong partners in community and across our shire to deliver some pretty important events, I think, for our community.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think there's a concern when comparing private enterprise with not-for-profit organisations. As an example, I know that the Rotary Club of Rutherglen over the last 12 years has contributed $400,000 back to the community. So I think that we have to look at the return on investment in the assessment processes as we go forward. I also would like to see more community members involved in the panel. I think all of these people who, obviously do a good job, but if we could encourage more community members to be on those panels, I think would be advantageous in that they live and work in the community, and perhaps would give a different perspective to things.
I just want to make a couple of comments. Firstly, I think that it's really healthy to have any discussion about appropriate use of council rates money and making sure that it's that we're really transparent with how we spend it and who it should be allocated to. We set the grants criteria and the terms of reference for this this group. And we don't just do that ourselves off what we think would be most appropriate. We've been heavily guided in recent years by the local government inspectorate, and IBAC and other various bodies who've looked at council's sort of almost discretionary spending, they've sort of called it, to say your grants processes need to be really tightened up. I've been really happy with the way that the organisation has responded to that, and I've got good confidence in our grants processes, but I also appreciate the opportunity every 12 months to review the criteria and strengthen them where there is opportunities. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to Councillor Croucher as the mover.
Yes, I'd just also like to congratulate and thank the panel. We were there for about 4 hours going through this, so we followed the process pretty closely and the criteria. Of course, as a councillor, I was a non-voting. I had no comment to say in any of this, so it was done by that particular panel. And I'd just like to thank them very much for distributing the funds, particularly over a wide area of the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Those in favour of the motion again, please. Councillor Horn, Croucher, Tysell, Price, Shepherd, Gold. Those against? Councillor Gaffney. The motion's carried. We'll now move on to item 12.3, the community grants for 2023-24. Councillor Tysell, would you like to acknowledge your conflict of interest before you leave the room?
Yeah, I have a general conflict of interest with this, as I'm affiliated with one of the organisations that has potentially received a graft, so I'd like to be removed from the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Tysell. Wherever you like. Councillors, the item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 distributes $50,000 in the 2023-24 Indigo Shire Community Grants Program as follows. Again, there are several projects listed, all with recommended funding allocations. The organisation is listed and the project is listed. I don't intend to go through all of those. And number 2, thanks the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee for its voluntary time in reviewing and assessing the applications. Could I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, well, again, I was the non-voting chairman. I had before me a panel of decision makers truly representative of the Shire. I was pleased how comprehensive the panel were in awarding funds to those worthy of such a variety of different projects. As a community member of a small town myself, I know how constituents are truly thankful for such a community grants program.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Horn.
This panel is made up of 10 community members and 2 non-voting councillors, and as is a very wide selection of projects that have been granted some funding, everything from Allen's Flat Tennis Club to Indigo North Health for their secret women's business. It sounds very interesting. And the cricket club, etc. And because community members are actually involved in this, they assess the needs of their various communities, and they take a great deal of time and dedication to ensure that the money is equitably spread around the whole Shire, and I think they do a fabulous job.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
The groups that receive these grants are from right across the Shire. The community panel is a reflection of the views of the Indigo Shire community. This committee knows our community, and I congratulate them on their achievements.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll return to Councillor Croucher. Would you like to sum up?
Look, I would again like to thank that group of people, as again, we spent quite a few hours going through it. It was a very good way we did it, and those people who turned up and made their voices known resulted in, I think, a really good mix of of community grants for our shire.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13 is infrastructure services and item 13.1 is community sustainability grants program for 2023-2024. Councillor Gold, you would like to note your conflict of interest at this point.
Thank you. Yes, I declare a general conflict of interest in that I'm a member of Totally Renewable Beechworth, as mentioned in this report.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillors, the item is for decision. The recommendation is that council allocates $20,096 via the 2023-24 Community Sustainability Grants Program to the applicants as set out below. Again, there is a number of projects. They're listed by applicant, project name and an amount. Do I have a councillor who would like to move that motion? Moved councillor Tyson, seconded councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson.
I'd like to acknowledge the work that many of these groups do within our communities. Many of the works that they do are informative, and the amounts here aren't necessarily reflective of the value that it adds to the communities ongoing and into the future. They're very innovative in what they've put forward, and they should be commended on their applications.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, this is, I think, the 6th year that this has been running, and it really, again, came from the community. They were seeking funding for sustainability. I think it was Waganya was looking for assistance with battery, and we said, well, there's probably more than Waganya that would like to apply for this. So it's been going for 6 years, and we've given out to some really great sustainability and energy upgrades and changes, and they're all available to be looked at our new climate action web page on the Indigo Shire web page. And I really encourage people to have a look at it there, because it's got all of the past winners and what they've done with their money. And it's a great opportunity for community to see where that $20,000 being spent.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Yes, this is another successful grants program, but how lucky are we in Indigo to have those last 3 community grants and the events grants for people, for our community to choose for? And I think this is just terrific. These are terrific programs and programs that our community really look forward to.
Point well made. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If no, I'll return to councillor Tyson. Would you like to sum up? No? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.2 is contract 223/63-02 design and construction of pump tracks, Waganya and Tangambalanga. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards contract number 223/063-02 design and construction of Waganya and Tangambalanga pump tracks to Common Ground Trails Proprietary Limited for the amount of $519,900 excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to execute the contract documentation, and 3, authorises the CEO the final delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Do I have someone who would like to move that? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, taking over a little bit here, but look, how fantastic is this for two of our growing towns, Tangambalanga and Warganya? Both of these towns have a growing population with lots of young families. A pump track will be welcomed by both towns and also by the schools. And it is my pleasure to endorse the recommendation to award the contract to Common Ground Trails and to authorise the CEO to execute the contract document and authorise the financial delegation.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, once again, it's great to see these added things to our smaller communities that probably don't get the recognition in the broader sphere as, say, Beechworth, Yakandanda. It's also great to see that these are things that are going to keep our communities active and active for a very long time. And I believe Councillor Croucher might even be down there every now and again.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
Again, these have both come from the community. I think one was the keyword Tangam placemaking. It came up with the community said that's what they wanted. And Warganya with their master plan for that, railway land. And both of them have come forward saying that's what they've wanted. And we've heard that that's what they've wanted. So again, another community push and we've answered the call. So, and we've also received funding, which has been fantastic. And I think a great idea to put them both out for tender. So congratulations, the Infrastructure Department. I think that was a really good idea to make that worthwhile, someone coming up and being able to do them both at once. So that's fantastic. Well done, both communities.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor? Councillor Horn.
Just for the people who may not know what a pump track is, it's for kiddies to ride push bikes on.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Gaffney.
I'd just like to say that this provides recreation for the youth with minimal environmental impact in these very fast developing communities.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll return to the mover. Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.3 is the September Capital Works report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council notes the September Capital Works report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Could I have somebody to move that, please? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold.
Thank you. Having just recently joined council, as a councillor, it's one of the first opportunities I've had to look in detail at the sort of capital works program that we have and to clearly understand the budget and the process of delivering. It's been a really interesting process to understand the detail of both the work that goes into delivering the work, the spread of capital works, the diversity of works that occur across the Shire. And I think so often the sort of capital works that are undertaken and are somewhat hidden because they're not necessarily topical, they're not necessarily sexy projects, but they get done. I think it's been, for me, an extraordinary eye-opener on the body of work that is achieved and the effectiveness of the council officers in delivering this volume of work in what I appreciate has been very trying times, even post-COVID and with a shortage of staff. So I would like to commend the officers for the work that they're doing and am very excited about the detail that I've come to understand and that I hope perhaps some people online who are listening in might persevere with reading some of the reports because they are actually quite interesting.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, just going to take a couple of the things out of this report. One is Stratton Street. We had a community forum in Warganya last week, and that was actually brought forward too, again by the community as a point of interest that they wanted fixed, and it's now nearly completed. And we also got to do a tour of the Rutherglen Loops Wine Circle Ride Trail, which is also underway and should also bring long-term benefits to the communities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher?
Just short and sweet, I think it's really great to see that the 22-23 projects have now all been completed, and now's the opportunity to begin all the new ones and continue on with things.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management, and item 14.1 is the public transparency policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 adopts the reviewed public transparency policy 2023, and 2 revokes the confidentiality policy, noting that it is superseded by the reviewed public transparency policy. Could I have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The public transparency policy is that all council information will be made available to the public unless, 1, the council information is confidential information, or 2, the release of the council information is assessed by the Chief Executive Officer as being contrary to the public interest. If you disagree with it, you certainly have options, and one of those options is to put in an FOI request. I believe that there are 6 current FOIs have been handed to council. I'm just wondering what the process of that is and how long the wait is to get a result from your FOI.
It was a detailed process, but if anyone wanted to lodge a request, certainly contact council and we'll put them on to the right people. A lot of times we just provide the information anyway without the need for a request, but sometimes there is a need to follow the complete process for various reasons. And should a request be lodged, I think we've got something like 60 days to respond to that in general terms. No, 45. Right. So yeah, so within 30 days, so we'll respond initially, but that process could trigger a further process. Like sometimes it's third-party referrals and things like that. But the first point of call, contact us. We've got an officer that can help anybody out with an inquiry.
Can you just repeat that, CEO? 30 days. The staff member didn't have a microphone in front.
There's different types of requests. So there's, I think, a 30-day response initially, but sometimes the requests require us to get permission from third parties because it may be someone else's information that is also included. So there's other timeframes that are involved in that as well. So that could make it longer than 30 days.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you. I'd also like to note that Indigo Shire Council in recent years has had one of the lowest amounts of confidentiality outcomes during council meetings, and that the number of FOIs that Indigo Shire receives is very low.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
This has already been to council and went out for 30 days for review by the community, and we had one submission. And thank you very much for the person who put in the submission, and those comments are in this report and the officer's reply, which I think speak to the questions that they asked. So thank you. Thank you for that person for reading and paying attention.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? The only other thing that I'd like to say is that I think in local government, generally, there's a very high bar for public transparency, but I think as Councillor Gaffney has alluded to, we give ourselves a very high bar here at Indigo as well, and it's great to be able to demonstrate both things. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to sum up?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is public interest disclosures. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 adopts the updated Public Interest Disclosure Policy 2023 and 2 revokes the 2019 Public Interest Disclosure in brackets whistleblower policy. Do I have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney.
People ask what is a public interest disclosure, and what's in the policy. It says that public interest disclosures are reports about 1, improper conduct of public bodies or public officers, such as corrupt conduct, and 2, detrimental action that a public officer or public body has taken against a person in reprisal for them or another person having made a public interest disclosure or cooperated with the investigation of a public interest disclosure.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
This is in the report. Strong, transparent governance practices shape community confidence in the organisation. This is one visible example of the community of how council provides for good governance practices and encourages the calling out of inappropriate conduct whilst protecting the disclosure.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, I'll go back to you to sum up.
I'd just like to say that this CO has made governance a very high priority for this council. And I think the governance of this council, including councillors and staff, is very good.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3, Council Action Plan 2023-24 Quarter 1 Progress Report. The recommendation is that Council notes the Quarter 1 2023-24 Council Action Plan Progress Report. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, it should be noted that best part of 3 years in, with another year to go on the plan, that 99% of our actions are actually either done or are being done. And that's pretty good considering that the last 2 to 3 years we've had several setbacks through COVID, lack of work staff, and lack of people that actually complete the jobs. So I think council should be commended on the work that they've done on this so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'd just like to endorse what Councillor Tyson has said. And if you look in the report, it says that 95% of the actions are on track, 4% are completed, and 1 is on hold. And in the general, 99% are either on track or completed. Fantastic result.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is appointment of acting chief executive officer. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 appoints the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton, as acting chief executive officer for the period 6 November through to 24 November 2023 inclusive. 2, authorise Greg Pinkerton to exercise all powers and authorities reposed in the position of the Chief Executive Officer for the period of the appointment as Acting Chief Executive Officer. And 3, notes that should the Chief Executive Officer be unable to undertake the leave within this period or otherwise resumes duties during this period, he will automatically resume all delegations and powers. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak?
I think it's the recommendation is self-explanatory.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, do you wish to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Shepherd, you don't wish to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees and endorses the officer recommendations. The three committees are the Indigo Advisory Committee, the Indigo Community Access Advisory Committee, and the Finance Committee. Do I have someone who would like to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
I note that there are no recommendations from the Access Committee or from the Indigo Advisory Committee, but a recommendation from the Finance Committee that Council accepts the August 2023 Finance Report.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Just to say how important our advisory committees are, that they again represent the views of a diverse audience across the Shire and bring expertise and perspectives that we wouldn't otherwise have access to without this sort of structure. And I appreciate that people do give a considerable amount of time and effort to participate in the advisory committees and to prepare both for those meetings and to consult more broadly with a wider audience before they put forward their any suggestions or recommendations. So I'd like to just commend our advisory committees for all the work that they do.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6 is informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Do I have someone to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney, do you wish to speak? Councillor Tyson, no other councillors wish to speak. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.7 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for September 2023. The item is for information, and there were no contracts awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of $250,000 and $500,000 for the month of September 2023. Item 15 is notices of motion, and there are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Would any councillor like to make a report to the meeting? None. Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary for September 23. Item 17 is the Decisions Register, which is there for information. Item 18 is general business. Councillors, do you have any general business for the council meeting tonight? Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I'd just like to note that we're currently calling for budget submissions. And one of the areas that I'd like to address is our ageing well and the funding that we have for it. I'd like to, in the 2024 financial year, actually have that improved quite remarkably. Ageing well make up 42% of our community. Most of those are our highest volunteer participation, and they're also some of our most at risk. I'd like to see us do more and reinstate the community luncheons that we used to have prior to COVID, subsidise some of the bus fare to and from these events, and improve our welfare checks on some of our elderly people and those most at risk. And I'd like support when the budget comes around next year. Thank you.
So, Councillor Tyson, at this stage, are you just raising that to be noted and considered for the 2024 budget process?
That's correct, yes. For
Thank
the next
you.
financial year, not this one.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Does any other councillor have? Councillor Gaffney?
First of all, I'd like to echo those words of Councillor Tyson. And I was wondering if we could have an update on the Beechworth-Wodonga Road culvert works. The road's been out of action since before Easter.
CEO?
Thank you, councillor, through you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor. The staff, the executive team met with Regional Roads Victoria last Friday, a meeting with their leadership team of the local region. We did receive an update on the roads, just as much to say that that they were finalising near the end of what were environmental impact statements and heritage studies done. Even though they're not as visible as other heritage sites, there's some old historic culverts that are under the road, so they're just finalising that. We do not have from Regional Roads Victoria any firm dates yet. So there's no firm date yet as to when those works might be completed, but they are getting closer to finalisation and should be able to start works at some point, but we don't have any dates on them.
Thank you, CEO. Does any other councillor have any general business? Councillor Horn.
This is a question of the CEO. Trevor, can you please advise the community of what steps have been taken to advise them of the review process of the Main Street Rutherglen Road situation for the heavy vehicles?
CEO.
Thank you, councillor. The update on the Rutherglen truck alternate route that we received is that Regional Roads Victoria is still awaiting the outcome of a review being conducted by the federal government into various grant programs that are currently still outstanding and haven't been completed. This being one of them. So there's a process called, they call it a 90-day review, where they're going to spend 3 months reviewing a whole range of previously grant funded projects to see where they're up to and whether or not they would continue with funding those grants to their conclusion. The Mayor Price and myself were in Canberra back in June and had the opportunity to lobby directly to the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport, Minister Catherine King, as well as meeting with their Deputy Secretary of that department. And we were able to advocate, amongst other things, for the government to stay with that grant, given its importance to the township of Rutherglen. And also we asked for their patience, and we explained that this was a long process, and it wasn't through any sort of delays on our part, but more on the importance and the length of time it's taken for Regional Roads Victoria to pursue various options with the community. And as you know, councillor, there was various options that have been looked at over the last few years, Up River Road, for example, and the Reed Scott Douglas example. So it's taken time to work through those, and the various ones being discounted. They are now honing in on the preferred option being to leave the trucks in Main Street and looking at traffic calming works. Now that's where they got up to when the government then put a hold on those grants, and they're doing a review process. So we've lobbied for those to be retained, but we're still waiting for that outcome, and Regional Roads has not heard anything more. So they haven't given the community an update on that, because they felt they had nothing new to advise the community. So hopefully if those grants are freed up and they're back and up and running again, we presume that they will then recommence their consultation that they were about to commence, which was the final option of going back to Main Street. We'll also be apart from lobbying firsthand, we've also written to our local member Helen Haynes to make further inquiries about where that's up to, and whether Member Haynes can also lobby on our behalf. And we haven't done that yet, but we'll be writing to the State Minister for Roads, so to advocate to at least keep the state share if the federal government does decide to pull that grant, that at least the state contributions would stay as well. So we want to lobby for that as well, remembering that this was a $4 million project, $2 million coming from the federal, $2 million coming from the state. Also remembering that this isn't directly our project, this is through Regional Roads Victoria, but we've been kept informed of progress along the way.
Can we also insist on the release of the Rutherglen Origin and Destination report, which was supposed to be critical in this whole process and which has never been released? We've had various promises from various parts of the government over the years, and of course it's very disappointing for the people of Rutherglen to think that we've come to a grinding halt again, because as you know, we've actually been asking for a bypass for 50 years. So if we could have that, at least get that report, that would be a very good move in the right direction.
Yep, I'm happy to ask again for that report to be released. Pass that on.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Do any other councillors have any general business for tonight's meeting? Councillor Gold.
Mine's just a follow-up question to the CEO. In light of your recent conversation with Regional Roads Victoria, were there any other updates on their activities across our shire that you haven't already discussed with us tonight?
Topical tonight, yes. We did have the opportunity to share our, I guess, our community's frustration and impatience at potholes. It's certainly a topical issue. We've all been affected by them. The widespread rains and storm events over the last 12 months have done a lot of damage to the roads. They are going through their process of, on a priority basis, going to the most used roads first. So their first priority has been Hume Highway, and then from then they're branching out to then the priority arterials, and then they'll get down to the lesser and lesser used roads, but still Regional Roads Victoria roads nonetheless. They aren't near completion of, I guess, repairing all the known potholes that have popped up in the last 12 months since the storms. They're not near the end of it, and they've got more to go. And I think we can expect to see that repair project taking a number of months still to come. The other thing we discussed was the fatality or the intersection at Wenke's Road, Chiltern, where sadly 4 people lost their lives there some months ago now. So they've since then conducted a review of that intersection that involves a multi-agency approach. So they've visited the site along with council staff, as I understand, and Vic Police and so on. So they're looking at different options there and developing a report on what they might do there to improve that intersection. So they're looking at things like perhaps speed limits on the Wenke roadside, working with the providers of satellite navigation software so that they divert traffic back via the proper, I'll say the better freeway on ramps and things like that. So people aren't told, especially strangers in town, aren't told to use those smaller roads. They use the main roads, get on the freeway a little bit more safely, and things like that, stop signs and signage and speed limits around the side. So there's a whole range of things they're looking at. And so we're waiting for their report on what they propose to do to improve that intersection.
Thank you, CEO. If there's no other general business, we'll move to the last item for the night, which is a confidential item for the benefit of those watching the meeting. We'll go into confidential, and after we re-enter, it will just be to close the meeting. So this will be the last item for the night. Item 19 is confidential. Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 states a council or delegated committee must keep a meeting open to the public unless the council or delegated committee considers it necessary to close the meeting to the public because a circumstance specified in subsection 2 applies. The circumstances are that the meeting is to consider confidential information as defined in section 3 of the Local Government Act for security reasons, or it is necessary to do so to enable the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner. The recommendation is that the council meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 66 of the Local Government Act. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We've just returned to public session. We've come out of confidential, and that's just to close the meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 7:54 p.m. The next meeting of council is Tuesday, the 28th of November, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.